Okay, chapter 20, revolutions in Europe and Latin America. So the overarching is how did revolutionary ideals in Europe and Latin America ignite these uprisings in the first half of the 19th century? So we're really talking probably during Napoleon, so 1800 to 1850 is the period that we're going to really be talking about here. So this very first section, an age of ideologies, that would be conservatism, liberalism, and nationalism. Those are really the three big ideologies that are going on. And Metternich, if you go back to the Council of Europe, he was correct in his fears about nationalism and how things are just going to kind of fall apart. So if we look at conservatives, really when you look at it, they want to maintain the status quo. They want to keep things as they are. And when you look at conservatives of this era, of this time, it's really from the fallout from the French Revolution. After French Revolution, or throughout the French Revolution, things are really chaotic. The reign of terror and all those types of things. And so it causes conservatives of Europe to kind of think about the good old days, which may not have been all that great, but in comparison to what was going on, it sure seemed pretty good. So they want to return to monarchies. They view all of these changes that people are calling for part of the reason behind all of the chaos. And again, conservatives and liberals would both argue that they have the best interests of all at heart. And really, when you look at it, having a group of people who want to make sure that things don't become too chaotic, that there is some stability, that we think long and hard about the changes that are being made. You need that in a society to be able to balance out some of those other things. When we look at liberals, this is mostly the bourgeoisie at this time, so this growing middle class. And if we look at seeking change, the big part for a lot of these groups, the reason they're seeking change is the good old days didn't have large numbers of middle class business people. It didn't have working class people who were in factories because those didn't exist. And so a lot of the liberals are looking at the new world saying, well, we can't go back to the good old days because we weren't part of the good old days. This is something new, something different, so we need change. And the things that they're really pushing are US-style governments, constitutions, republics. Also, when you look at natural rights, they want to see universal suffrage for all adult men, and they really want to see an economy based on Adam Smith's laws, laissez-faire, hands-off, and let the natural laws of the economy run, which is a big change from the old way of doing things, where the monarch pretty much decided everything that was being done. So for nationalists, these are these people who have a common identity, a common language, a common ethnicity, a common history. And there's a growing call for these small ethnic groups to have a place to call their own. And so if you look at this map of Hungary and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, you can start to see that there are lots of different ethnic groups as part of this. And it's going to be really hard to kind of create a unified country when you've got that much diversity. And diversity is a good thing, but when you don't give them a way to express themselves, if you don't give them a way to have their own identity, if you don't give them some limited self-rule, it's really going to cause problems. And so Austro-Hungarian Empire is one, the Ottoman Empire is another, and the Russian Empire is a third, that have these multinational groups in there that are really going to face a tough time here, especially as there's more calls for change. There's a plus and a minus side to this nationalism. It does inspire and unite people to form around this thing of nationalism, but you also get a great deal of intolerance and persecution when you get our group is better than their group. The stars upon thars type of thing from Dr. Seuss. So Serbia is one of these places that really has it all really kind of put together. They have a leader who's willing to kind of step forward and try and lead this charge for Serbia gaining its independence. The other thing Serbia has is they are Slavic, which is what the Russians are, and so they are going to get support from Russia to move towards self rule. And sooner or later, the Ottomans are going to kind of realize maybe the day has come and they're going to give Serbia some self rule. Now, eventually, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, those places are going to fall under the control of the Austria Hungarian Empire, and then they're going to go back to where they were, and this whole thing's going to start all over again. Greece is one of these that were successful. They got help from Europe, mostly because Europe wanted to see Greece free from the Ottoman Empire. Now, the flip side of this is they were allowed to gain their independence and they got help from the rest of Europe to get their independence, but they're put under the control of a German king. So when you look at Metternich, who's encouraging um, some of this independence for certain places, the flip side of that is he wants to maintain monarchies and legitimacy, and that's where Greece is not totally independent. And then you can see other places where Metternich wants these to be squashed quickly. So Spain, Portugal, and the Italian provinces, what ends up happening is when these revolutionary ideas are picking up steam, he wants this to be done, and so he encourages France to send their army into Spain and also into Italy to squash these. The Austrian Empire goes into Italy to squash these things, to try and keep monarchs in place and to try and keep stability in the status quo. And so when we look at these three things that are all coming together, it's a really explosive mixture that's just going to continue to kind of build up pressure.